Being self-aware will not protect you from making the same mistakes. In fact, sometimes you will make the same mistakes because you're self-aware. So what I mean by that is I tricked myself into dating a terrible man, a violent man. I didn't know he was violent, but I always knew he was like, you know what I mean? Like, my intuition was pretty spot on about him. But I gaslit myself with what? Self-awareness. I mean, I'm not saying that he didn't also fool me, trauma dumping, listening to all my stories so that he could figure out where my weak spots were and then use those against me, all the classic like narcissist stuff. But I tricked myself. Even if he wasn't saying the things, I was saying them myself. So for instance, I knew that I really should not date this man. I knew it. And yet he was really good at eating, because all of the abusers are. They're always so good at eating this. I mean, not all of them, but most of them. Because they know most women are not, women who date men are not used to men who care about eating this or who are any good at it. And so we're just like, wow, he really cares. He's so thoughtful. He loves me, man. No. Kitty cat eating skills does not mean that he loves you. Oxytocin is a drug, y'all. So intuition is usually a very quiet knowing. And I always, it was consistent. I always was like, I don't know, something just doesn't feel right. And then my hormones and my unresolved trauma or unhealed trauma, not even aware that trauma was their trauma, and all my daddy issues and all my codependency and all those other things nervous system were all just so loud that I couldn't listen to my intuition. And I remember one moment in particular when I was in Joshua Tree, because I literally went on a 3-week trip to get away from this man because he was making me insane. And I was just I went away, I went to LA, did some storytelling to feel good about myself. I went to Joshua Tree to climb and hang out with other climbers. And I met these amazing women and we climbed and I felt so good about myself. And I didn't have cell phone service there. And so I didn't have him in my head. Just, I wasn't getting those shots of attention and adrenaline and all that stuff, right? And then I remember I had set an ultimatum because this man had tricked me into dating him when he had a girlfriend. And so once I realized he had a girlfriend, I was like, oh crap, but I was in too deep. So now all of a sudden I am the other woman. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I got to get away from you. I feel awful about myself. He was also living with this girl and her mom because he was that little hobo schmegdual. Homeless man who jumps from one woman to the other to exploit her like a literal parasite. He rode the rails for 9 years. He literally was he wanted to have no responsibility. Didn't have a driver's license, didn't have a social security card, no money, nothing. I was like, wow, but he could eat this. And so I had finally I had to leave New Mexico and get out of the state to get away from this man because I knew this man is not boyfriend material, but I was addicted to him. My nervous system and everything, whatever. And I remember feeling so at peace that I was pretty sure that I was not going to go back to this man. I just had that kind of almost no contact, not quite no contact, but at least a break. And I got to the top of a climb in Joshua Tree. And all of a sudden my cell phone works. Because in Joshua Tree, you don't really have cell phone service in most places, but if you get high enough, you do. And I remember as soon as I got to the top of a climb, I heard bing, and it's him. And the text was well, I left her. We can finally be together now. And my first thought, the intuitive was no. And then the self-knowledge voice came in and was yeah, Melanie, but you always leave. You're a runner. You're a flight risk. You're afraid of commitment. You've never had a boyfriend. You're 36 years old. You've always been afraid of being vulnerable and being loved. You're afraid of commitment. And all those things were true. But that doesn't mean that I should still date this person, And then I remember calling my best friend Liz and being oh God, I guess we're going to date now. And she always did not really like him. But she was, trying not to be too hard on me or him. She knows that that's not actually helpful. She was yeah, Melanie, but just because you're aren't used to commitment doesn't mean you should be committing to him. And I was yeah, but he left his girlfriend for me. I'm the other woman. My mom went through that. Like, I am just, you know what I mean? I had all these stories about like, how dare I be that woman who screws over another woman, you know, and this is my bed. I need to lie in it. And she was just like, no. Just because he left her for you doesn't mean you actually have to date him. You still get a choice in this. Like, it's not your fault he cheated on her. And just because he left her for you doesn't mean that you now have no option. Like, sounds like, you know, she knew that I was kind of leaning against ever seeing him again. And I should have listened to her. And this is why you need community. You need friends. You need a mentor or whatever. And all that stuff takes a while to build, but that's why it's so important to build that stuff, especially if you have a lot of trauma, because they're the people who hold me accountable. My brain will literally take any truth about myself and spin it to do something crazy and be like, yeah, but you know, you're afraid of meh, or this is just how you are. Like, our brains are really amazing that way, you know? We can justify anything in our brain. I mean, we see it with religion, we see it with everything. We'll just take one line and be like, well, that thing is true, so that must mean this thing, you know what I mean? So that's why, I mean, I think therapy and all that stuff is really important, you know, and all that really deep shadow work and all that stuff. Also building community and having mentors or people who can call you and help you see the truth when all of these trauma responses and the codependency and the daddy issues and all of the like manipulation and gaslighting from that other person and all those things are just like with a bullhorn in your ear being like, bah! And that quiet knowing, that intuitive thing that's like, yeah, but you need somebody to hold a microphone to that, because I will literally justify the most bonkers things. When my brain gets something, when I get, you know, maybe it's not my brain, my nervous system, whatever, these responses, when they get set on something, it's like I have a Harvard law degree. I can literally be like, yeah, but boom, 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 and it all makes sense, even though deep down, it doesn't. And I need someone to reflect that back on me. I need someone to hold me accountable and not co-sign the lies I tell myself. Because under self-awareness, I will justify anything and even put myself in danger doing so.